Welcome to Thursday, April 9th, 2026, and today is National Unicorn Day, which feels like a reminder that even completely imaginary things can become wildly recognized, even if people agree on them. Welcome to This Day in History from, wait, that's random. I'm your host, C.L. Burns. On this day in 1413, Henry V was crowned King of England. He would go on to become one of England's most well-known warrior kings, particularly for his role in the 100 Years' War against France. But what's interesting about Henry V isn't just what he did as king. It's the shift that happened when he became one. Before taking the throne, he had a reputation for being less focused, more interested in life outside of responsibility. But once crowned, that changed. The mechanism here is a transition of role. When someone moves into a position of power, expectations change, and sometimes behavior changes with it. Henry V reorganized his focus, strengthened his leadership, and led England through one of the most famous military victories at the Battle of Agincourt, which raised a question. Does the role reshape the person, or does the person rise to meet the role? Sometimes power is taken on, and sometimes it's tested. On this date in 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to the Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The American Civil War had lasted 4 years. It had caused massive loss of life, destruction, and division across the country. By the time of the surrender, the outcome was becoming clear. Lee's army was surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of supplies. But what stands out about that moment is how it ended. Not with a final massive battle, but with a meeting. Grant offered terms that were relatively generous. Confederate soldiers were allowed to return home. Officers could keep their sidearms. The focus wasn't on prolonging the conflict, it was on ending it. It was about resolution. At some point, conflict reaches a limit. Resources run out, options narrow, and a decision is made. Not because everything is settled, but because everything continuing no longer makes sense. And even though this moment didn't solve everything that came after, it marked a turning point, an ending. And sometimes an ending like that creates space for something entirely new. Which brings us to 1959. On April 9th, NASA introduced the Mercury Seven, the first group of American astronauts. At the time, space wasn't a destination, it was unknown. The idea of sending humans beyond Earth's atmosphere carried real uncertainty. Not just technically, but physically. How would the human body react? Could someone function in zero gravity? Would they be able to return safely? The Mercury Seven were selected to help answer those questions. Each mission built on the last, collecting data, refining systems, pushing slightly further. But before any of that happened, there was this moment. 7 individuals standing together, representing something that hadn't fully happened yet. Exploration before experience. Confidence before proof. And that's often how progress starts. Not with certainty, but with a step into something that hasn't been fully understood. And while some people shape history through power or conflict, others shape culture in ways that influence how people see the world. Which brings us to a birthday. Hugh Hefner was born on April 9th, 1926. He became the founder of Playboy magazine, which had a significant impact on media, publishing, and cultural conversation during the 20th century. The magazine combined interviews, articles, and photography in a format that pushed boundaries for the time. And regardless of perspective, it influenced how media approached topics of lifestyle, identity, and expression. It was about cultural influence, shifting what is considered acceptable or discussable. And once those boundaries move, they rarely return to where they were before. If you step back and look at these moments together, something starts to connect. A king steps into a role and changes. A war ends not with a final battle, but a decision. And a group prepares to step into something no one has experienced before. Different moments, different outcomes, but each one is about transition, from uncertainty into something new. Anyway, those are a few things I ended up discovering while searching through April 9th. Stop by tomorrow and we'll see what the next date decides to serve up next. If you want to know more about me or the work I do, you can find everything at waitthat'srandom.com. I'm C.L. Burns, and I appreciate you stopping by.